another minute, and then Umi is going to kick us off with an introduction, and then I'll start with the agenda. Thank you all so much for joining us for the Mississippi Farm to School Network's Farm to ECE 101, part of our webinar series. We hope to make our webinar series available on our YouTube channel, Mississippi Farm to School Network at YouTube. So if you want to show this again, want to watch it again, want to share it with friends, it is on our channel, as well as our amazing virtual farm tour field trip. And that is at Galloway Family Farm in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. And we have the farmers on the call today. Welcome, Galloway family.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, y'all. All right, Umi, you want to go ahead and kick us off?
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone. So excited. We have a lot of folks joining us today, and I'm looking forward to this webinar series, Let's Grow Healthy Futures, Farm to ECE, really deep dive exploration with our team. And as folks are coming into the room, and those of you who have been on the call, we invite you to put your name, your affiliate organization, and or where you're located in the state. If you're able to put that in the chat, go ahead and introduce yourselves. And yeah, ready to get into this. Let me go on to the next screen here.
All right, my friends, so this is a little bit about our agenda for today's Farm to ECE 101 webinar. Welcome to those of you that are just joining us. You are in the careful hands of Umi and myself today, and our agenda, we're first going to start a little bit with getting to know each other. So please, if you're able to participate in the chat, make sure you have that at the ready. You do not need to participate in the chat to earn your contact hours for this event, but you do need to be here through the end of this webinar so that you can participate in the survey that we have for everyone that's attending. We're going to be answering your questions about what is Farm to ECE. We're going to talk a little bit about our programs, Mississippi Sprouts, our Garden Box program, and our Youth Leadership program. We're going to talk a lot about how you can bring local produce into your classrooms. We're going to talk about, how do you start Farm to ECE when it comes to childcare regulations through the Mississippi State Department of Health? How do you build a team? How do you involve your administration? We're going to discuss the when, what, where, and how of gardening, as well as garden supplies and safety. We'll be addressing how you can connect Farm to ECE activities to your standing curriculum. It's really simple to do. Many of you are already doing things that will very, very easily link to Farm to ECE curriculum and lessons. We're going to share with y'all how you can find farmers and how you can get farmers involved in your programs and how farmers can get involved in your programs. I know we've got a number of farmers on the call today. We're going to talk a little bit about fundraising, development. Not every school is going to have the money set aside to fund your Farm to ECE activities. So if you want to do a low-cost activity, how can you do that? What kind of funds can you find? What are funds that are out there? We're going to shout out our Farm to School Week Challenge. We're in the middle of Mississippi Farm to School Month. It's actually National Farm to School Month. And we just celebrated Mississippi Farm to School Week. Many of the classes and schools and programs that are participating observed fall break last week. So they're participating this week with lots of different farmer visits. We've got some upcoming mobile farmers markets happening. I want to shout out Jess McNally in New Orleans, Louisiana, who does a lot of mobile farmers markets too. Glad to see you here, Jess. And then we're going to talk a little bit about resources for everyone on this call. and invite you to both participate in question and answer section. Now, if you have questions throughout, you can just pop them in the chat, and either Umi or myself will grab them and we'll address them during the Q&A portion. We also invite everyone, please, if you are seeking contact hours through this training, we will have a survey at the end of the call for you to participate in, and folks that participate in that survey will then get a certificate for their hours by this Friday. Next, we've got, we just want to introduce you to our team. We have 2 of our 4 stellar team members here on the call today. I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'll pass it over to Umi, our amazing director. My name is Eddie Dingus. I am the Farm to Early Care and Education Specialist at the Mississippi Farm to School Network. We are a statewide nonprofit that offers technical assistance to both learning centers and farmers that are looking to get involved in this kind of work. And my pronouns are she, they. I am based in North Mississippi, but again, serve the entire state. So if you want to get in touch with me, please do. I would love to help you. All right, Umi, I pass it off to you.
Hey everyone, Umi Jenkins, she, her pronouns. I am so excited to be here with you all today for this webinar and just connect and exchange questions. I'm based in Gulfport, Mississippi, here on the coast. And I know I've met many of you moving around the state throughout the Delta and Jackson and Northern Mississippi. So it's an honor to also learn from Eddie, who's been spearheading our Farm to ECE throughout this webinar. So happy to connect with you all. And yeah, if you have questions throughout, as Eddie said, please drop them in the chat. We'll be sure to get to you.
All right, my friends, to save my bandwidth, I am going to go off camera, but that does not mean I have left you. I'm still here, just a disembodied voice. And we're hoping to get you all engaged, at least here at the beginning. I know many of you are handling nap time or the end of lunch. But if you're able to put your favorite emoji in the chat, please let us know if there is a gardener in your family by putting your favorite emoji in the chat. Or if you spent time in a garden as a child, or if you grow your own plants or garden these days. We'd love to know who among us are linked to gardens, either in the past or the future, or both. I'm loving these emojis. Oh, we got flower. Oh, the painted nails emoji. It's everything. I love it so much. Thank you all for being here. And really and truly, you know, we say this a lot in ECE as well as in our work at the Mississippi Farm to School Network. It takes a special spark for this kind of work to be able to move it forward. So knowing that you're here and this is something that has stayed with you either for a few months since you got your garden started or decades since you were, you know, harvesting in your grandmother's garden, right? We love that you're here and that you're bringing those positive interactions with outdoor spaces and fresh food to kids. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what the core elements of Farm to School are. And these are incredibly important for us to know because often, you know, we've only got one pillar happening and it's so easy to get to implement those other 2 pillars. So as you think about your farm to school activities, your farm to ECE activities, we encourage you to think about these 3 pillars and how you can bring them in to what you're facilitating in your programs. The first one is school gardens. We love a school garden. Gardens can take many different shapes, sizes, forms. We'll be talking about what a lot of those look like later on in this presentation. But we also, a huge piece, another pillar, is the nutrition and agricultural education piece. If you're out in the school garden, that is often happening organically, if you'll forgive the pun. You're talking about things that are growing. You're talking about what, the carrot that the kids are able to harvest is able to do for their bodies. But we also encourage you to think beyond education in the classroom. We want to encourage you to think into the community. How are you sharing nutrition and agricultural education with the families involved in your center, with the staff involved in your learning programs, with the community that could be involved in your learning? This um, important pillar, and something that we love to help folks realize here at the Mississippi Farm to School Network. If you want posters, we're starting a Harvest of the Season project where we're showcasing different produce that is plentiful in Mississippi. You can get posters like that, garden safety posters, all manner of things that you can hang up in your classrooms for free from us to support that education piece. And then finally, and this is incredibly important too, is the procurement piece. This is a big word, and it just means, how are you getting that fresh food into these learning spaces? There's lots and lots of different ways to do it, and we'll be talking about that. But how are you connecting with farmers and farms, with food distributors and CSAs in your community so that your kids are able to taste or, ideally regularly enjoy farm fresh, local, seasonal produce at their tables? So yeah, these are the big three pillars of farm to school. And as we talk a little bit more about how we realize these kinds of activities, we want you to bear these in mind. So what is Farm to ECE? Farm to ECE, or Early Care and Education, it increases access to local foods, edible gardens, and food and agricultural education for our youngest learners. So, I mean, you can be a little bitty baby and start participating in Farm to ECE. Basically, at 6 months, you can get those blueberries for them to gnaw on. Farm to ECE enhances the quality of educational experiences in all types of ECE settings and is incredibly aligned with the standards in ECE settings. It parallels the goals and priorities of many ECE communities, and there's lots of space for it, including an emphasis on experiential learning opportunities, parent and family and community engagement, and lifelong health and wellness for children, families, and caregivers. That's from our friends at Policy Equity Group. We love them. If y'all are ever looking for resources beyond Mississippi, look to Policy Equity Group. They're phenomenal. So a little bit more about the benefits of Farm to ECE programming. The Mississippi Farm to School Network, is, of course, affiliated with the National Farm to School Network. And what we like to say across the board is that kids win, schools win, and farmers win. Umi, do you want to talk a little bit more about these benefits?
Absolutely. So, in talking about Farm to ECE, or you're thinking about it, you've heard the term floating around, and you're interested in what are the benefits for my program, as Eddie mentioned, or your ECE space. And so, we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits, so you feel more informed as to the why. And I think that is important, and it keeps the momentum and the interest there when you know exactly why you're doing this. So, teaches children where their food comes from. We know that this is so important as there are adults, right? We know people that are well into adulthood who may not know the source of a pepper or potatoes and eggplant, like these things that we assume everyone may have an informed understanding about agriculture. It's not there. So let's start early, educating our youth on where their food comes from. Improves bodily awareness, enhances hands-on learning. This is always a goal I find in a lot of learning spaces where I want things to be more hands-on. And so the garden obviously becomes this very broad space to explore as students are learning about soil health or how to plan their garden or what to grow and when to harvest. And there's just layers to that type of hands-on learning. Expands the size of the learning space, as I was just saying, so you're able to go outside the classroom. And this can expand beyond just playtime. Now this is developmental. This is adding value to the education they're receiving because they're learning in a new space. They're learning in an expanded space. So something definitely to think about. develops essential life skills like teamwork, leadership, and critical thinking. You'd be surprised how these little ones, I know some of you are already in it and but just how excited they are and how invested they are in planting and something growing and being able to harvest it. Like they want to see the cycle through. They're interested in seeing that fruit develop. And so this is something that encourages teamwork, communicating with peers, and just full involvement in their learning experience. Provides more opportunities for community engagement and place-based education. And we'll talk more about how that community engagement piece ties in. There are some schools where the community is welcome on site when it comes to their growing space, and there are some schools that are utilizing a lot outside of the school site to grow food. And so this now engages children and their families more into the community as their community garden project grows and strengthens, supports the local economy. This is a big deal when we're talking about supporting our local farmers and students learning about that cycle of their food chain, the value chain in their food. And then lastly, what we have here, and this is not a complete list. You can probably think of other ways that having school gardens or even just exploring agriculture in the classroom benefits an ECE program, but encourages healthier eating habits. And this is really important because we're talking about the long term. We're talking about developing skills that children will want to continue throughout their life. Informs their food choices, and they're making choices on their food based on a food literacy. So they've been educated on these things. So we want to have a hand in encouraging that. Let me pop over to the next slides. So we're going to talk a little bit about our programs. What types of programs are happening at Mississippi Farm to School Network, because again, some of you may have heard about our organization or you follow some of our content online. So just to share a little bit more directly about our programs and maybe how you can get involved. So the Mississippi Sprouts is a program that was funded through Healthy Kids, Healthy Futures, led by the Nemours Foundation, Children's Health. And this program is statewide, but it was really focused on educating the educators as well on how to communicate and access their local food. The garden bed distribution program I want to talk for a second about, which is kind of came about organically because we received a very generous in-kind donation of hundreds of garden beds that we had to put in storage and figure out how we were going to get them distributed around the state. And so once we kind of got the logistics to distributing these garden beds, we were able to provide additional resources and offerings to support those of you who are hoping to start a garden, who have started gardens on their school site. So if you did apply through this garden distribution program, you received a $150 gift card, as well as technical assistance. So in some cases, we've come to your school sites and helped you assemble these beds and provided some additional digital resources and instruction on how to maintain it. So this has been a great program for getting gardens at school. And then we also have our youth leadership program. This is a 10-month opportunity for K through 12 students throughout the state to engage online in these virtual spaces. There's actually a picture here where you see the kind of Zoom screen with all the students. They join us every month to discuss everything from composting. We had adopted a cow and we were able to check in on this cow every month. We've had many guest speakers, farmers, chefs. We've done live cooking with students in this program. So it's just a way for us to engage with the youth directly. We love talking to all of you amazing professionals, but it's great to hear from our young people and to educate them directly when it comes to food literacy. So if you have additional questions about our programs, and I'm going to pause here. I would actually love if Eddie can delve a little bit more into the Mississippi Sprouts. I didn't break it down, but she's been very hands-on with this program.
Yeah, I'd be honored. I'm obsessed with Mississippi Sprouts. Like Umi said, it's funded through Nemours Children's Health, which is out of Jacksonville, Florida. And those funds came in part from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And it's been also supported by the Association of State Public Health Nutritionists, which is a huge proponent and group that really advocates and supports those of us that are working to realize farm to ECE. Mississippi Sprouts was our first iteration of this kind of program in the state of Mississippi, facilitated by the Mississippi Farm to School Network. And we endeavored to reach out to 5 different ECEs in the state that had the capacity to support either a new or an expanded farm to ECE program. We ended up connecting with 2 amazing Head Starts in the Delta, Crenshaw Head Start led by Director Sylvia Lantern, and West Tallahatchie ICS led by Director Angie Jennings, both of whom are just incredible people. We were able to not only connect with them and their communities, but also connect with the Greater Institute of Community Services and the lovely Marquita Jones, the nutrition director at Holly Springs Institute of Community Services Office of Head Starts. And that connected us with way more than 5 ECEs. We connected with 22 ECEs through our work in that program. And then we also connected with the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians Department of Early Childhood. Their 8 centers, 7 of which are Head Starts or early Head Starts. And that has just been such a phenomenal catalyst for partnership that continues past the end date of Mississippi Sprouts funding. We continue to work together, and we're hopeful for another iteration of Mississippi Sprouts in the future. We'll be looking to really try and focus on those centers and schools and programs that are in and around Jackson, Mississippi. So if you're interested and your school has the capacity to support growing or expanding or starting a farm to ECE program, let me know at my email, which will be listed at the end of this presentation. I would love to hear from you and be able to work with you. You want to take this?
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. So put a veggie emoji in the chat if you support a class or a school garden now. If you currently are in it and working, building, planting, put a veggie emoji in the chat if you're planning to start a garden in the future. So I know it could be intimidating, and some of you maybe have been thinking about it. So if you feel a little bit closer to that goal, go ahead and drop a veggie emoji in the chat.
Miss Artez Gibson has either a garden now or plans to start one in the future. Jess McNally, I know Jess has got some gardens in New Orleans. So exciting.
Nice. All right, so how can I bring local produce into the ECE classroom? So if this has been a question you've had, we're going to talk about it. There are a number of ways, and one way is starting a garden or grow space. And we want to be very realistic and transparent that it's not as magical as just going out to the garden and you're just planting tomatoes and cucumbers and things are growing. It's a lot of trial and error, especially if you are new to gardening. If there's someone on your team or in your staff that's already familiar with the process, that's great. It could save just some effort, some resources, and just doing the proper steps, getting your garden going. So you can start small. You may just want to have a container. I first learned about growing out of what you have from Tracy Galloway Family Farm. I used to see them growing out of buckets and like old bathtubs and just stuff that was around, and it was really cool to see. So you may want to start off growing just in a container, a one plant, tomato plant, or you maybe have the space at your school, an empty lot or what have you, to get a garden going. And we'll talk about what you want to make sure is in place before you actually get started. Some other ways to get local produce into the ECE classroom is through procurement. You can leverage funding. Maybe this is through a small grant or a local community initiative for healthy food that you can leverage that funding, get some funding that can help you, and purchase direct from farmers. You also have community, and you have, I was thinking of farmer stands and farmers markets. Does your school receive CA/CFP funding? Many of you do. Or maybe you know an area farm or CSA where you can buy locally grown produce for taste testing or snacks. So these are, I'm not even going to say small efforts. These are big efforts toward exposing your students to healthy food. And you can start where you are. It doesn't have to be a $500,000 endeavor. It could absolutely be something small just to get you started, and then you can grow and explore resources from there. And I will.
Umi is so right. We really encourage folks that are starting their Farm to ECE programming to start small. You always want to be able to make sure, and I've learned this the hard way again and again, that you have the capacity to do that, because we know that folks in this space, in the ECE space, whether they are administrators, child nutrition professionals, maintenance folks, teachers, all manner of y'all, you've got so many plates spinning. You're wearing lots and lots of hats. So we want to make sure that you can continue to support any new programming you've got, because it's really, really rich programming. Now, I know many of us, I myself spent about 7 years as a director of an ECE program in North Mississippi, and you're working really closely with the Mississippi State Department of Health representatives, right? So, and you need to make sure that your licensed ECE program is always following regulations. So what does MSDH regulations say about farm to ECE when it comes to childcare facilities? It basically says, this is a cool thing. You should totally do it. This long blurb here that you see on the screen is how MSDH treats it. Now, I know that MSDH is currently in the process of updating a lot of the regulations, but as far as I know, there aren't any that are specific to farm to ECE. So what we would like to encourage everybody to do on this next page is when you're thinking about how can my farm to ECE activities fit within the regulatory compliance set forth by the Mississippi State Department of Health. So my licensing agent doesn't have extra questions for me because I've got lots to do and I need to get a move on once I've met with them and they've checked everything out. Here is what you can do to make sure your center is maintaining compliance. First, we want to really, really make sure that we're driving home that all of you are following required staff to child ratios in the garden space, and of course, everywhere within the ECE program. If at all possible, and this is not always possible, staffing can be very expensive. Sometimes you got folks that call out. I know that it is an administrative burden, but if at all possible, double the amount of staff required by the State Department of Health when in the garden or in a gardening space, in a green space, because you've got lots of kids in one area, or maybe just a few kids in one area, but you only have 2 eyes and you can only keep your eyes in so many places at once. So multiple staff means improved safety. You're going to want to be mindful of developmentally appropriate activities, right? So 3-year-olds can water plants, they can wear gloves, they can dig in the dirt, which is an amazing sensorial activity. But if they are going to be harvesting with scissors, cutting zinnias in the pollinator garden, you want to have them glued right next to an adult for supervision. You're going to want to avoid using playground or other safety fences as trellises to encourage sight lines. So it can be really, really attractive to grow those beans on your chain link playground fence. But what that does is it disrupts sight lines, and that can disrupt safety. So we really encourage you to get another kind of trellis, and you don't have to buy a fancy trellis. You can find all manner of things, even just like yarn and string for things to climb, but make sure you're keeping them off of fences. You're going to want to ensure that you have a garden or farm to ECE activity specific safety policy in place. So, most of your safety policies are going to cover the playground, the classroom, everything. But think to yourself when you're instituting these farm to ECE activities, what am I doing now with this farm to ECE activity that I'm not doing during the regular school day? If there is something, like let's say you're going outside of the school playground, you're going to want to make sure you have a safety policy in place. You're going to want to make sure that this is captured in your center handbook, that you're providing this safety policy training to all of your staff members before the activities take place. And a really, really great practice is to also just send out a quick email or missive or text to your families to let them know that this policy is in effect. You're going to want to create a document or include a short sentence in your enrollment agreement, which is required for licensed ECE centers, that outlines permission for children to participate in these farm to ECE activities. This can be just like a single line that parents and family members initial before the child is enrolled. But this is a really great way to make sure that when your MSDH representative says, hey, are those kids supposed to be outside of the fence? Do their families know that they're doing this? You can say, yep, I got it right here in my MSDH binder on their enrollment agreement. We also have some farm field trip forms and other like boilerplate language that you can use in your handbooks. If you'd like to get in touch with me, I'd be happy to share those out with y'all. When working to procure, finally, local fresh, so you want to get local fresh produce in your meal program or in snacks or in taste tests or cooking demos. The best practice, now this is not required, but the best practice is make sure the person, the farm, the distributor that you're buying from has a food safety plan in place. Bonus, if they are GAP or Good Agricultural Practice certified. If they don't have a food safety plan in place, but they want to serve your center, awesome. Have them get in touch with us. We would love to be able to hook them up with a food safety plan that they could fill out. And then once you've got that food safety plan, they can keep a copy at their business, and then you can keep a copy on file at your center. This is a great way to make sure you're covering all your bases. All right, so let's say you've covered all your bases, you've got MSDH is covered, then what can you do? Before you break ground, we really want to encourage you to engage as many members of your program and your community as you can, because you're one person, you're an amazing person, you can do amazing things, but having a lot of people at the table is going to increase your support, which is going to increase your capacity for a successful farm to ECE program. Okay, so who could you get on your side? Maybe you have an administrator who's super busy but super supportive. Go and get their support. Talk to them, send them an email, schedule in a meeting with them, and make sure that they know that this is something you want to do and they support it. Because then in the future, if you've got, let's say, a farm to ECE webinar to attend, maybe that administrator will make space for other staff to attend that garden workshop. Or on a professional development day, they're bringing in a master gardener to talk to the staff about how you can improve your farm to ECE spaces. You're going to want to talk to your maintenance staff. If they're mowing outside and they don't know to avoid a certain plot of land, they may mow right over it. If I was a maintenance person, I would want to know that a garden was going up. And in a lot of my work with ECEs, a lot of the maintenance staff are super excited about participating in the garden. They want to do it. They have gardens at home. So make sure you're including them. If you don't have year-round maintenance staff, that is okay. When I was a director at an ECE program, we encouraged volunteers and from the families and community of our students. And we ended up with lots and lots of grandparents that really wanted to participate. They developed a watering club. They met regularly to talk about how they could make it a more inclusive space. If you can brainstorm somebody to take that on and work with them a little bit and then kind of give them the agency or the autonomy to run with it, that frees up so much of your time, and that helps others feel engaged and invested in the space. Many of those gardeners that I've worked with and that you could work with, many of them are master gardeners, which is a certification process that folks can go through, and you can learn a lot from these master gardeners. And then finally, you're going to want to seek support from your fellow teachers, any other staff, child nutrition staff. That's amazing. If you're growing herbs, often if you have an herb garden, you can work with child nutrition staff to include those herbs in some meals like spaghetti or on garlic toast. Super fun. And then just engaging the community. Make sure that you're talking to everybody and you're not just going rogue, because then things are going to get a little hard. Okay. What we got next?
Let me bring myself off mute. Okay, so you've gotten leadership's approval. You've gathered your garden team. You've considered all the things that Eddie was just sharing. What do I do now? And I also want to note that once you get past that initial startup, things can go a lot smoother from there. So please don't feel overwhelmed. It's just ensuring safety and just kind of getting started on the right foot. So 4 main decisions have to be made when you're ready to get going. When do you want to plant? This helps you in planning, getting those timelines in order. So once you've gathered your team, you want to start coordinating the logistics for your garden space. It's especially helpful when all the members of the team are able to communicate. So maybe you want to have like a newsletter or like a chat. I think for the community garden here on Gulfport, we use GroupMe. I think we use the GroupMe app just to communicate with everyone. So that's makes it a lot easier. Emails can sometimes be a little bit slow. So find what works best for you and your team. You want to elect 1 to 3 people, point people. So these may be those folks who are really aware of what's going on. Pro tip here, some gardening options are available year-round and or indoors. So some of you may be considering the hydroponic. You want to grow in the classroom, and just, for a number of reasons, it's easier, more convenient for you and your team. So this can have a different plan, but you still want to go through some of the same steps around the timing and, when school's out and who's going to be the point of contact and such. The next thing to consider is, what do you want to plant? And this is very important because I think in the excitement of getting started in the garden, folks can waste, not intentionally, but waste quite a bit of seeds just trying to get started. And it could be seeds these plants just are not meant to grow right now in the season. So it does involve some planning to determine, what do I want to grow for the fall? What do I want to grow for the spring? What's growing? What will grow well in the shade or in this really sunny part of the building? So that does matter. So there are 4 distinct planting zones in Mississippi. You want to research your program's growing zone. So what we can grow down here on the coast, from banana plants to hot peppers and all types of amazing things, may not do as well a little further north in the state. So definitely worth considering your zone when you're ready to get started. Keep track of these schedules to yield the best harvest. Decide on your options when you're with your students in mind, but start small. You can always expand your garden later. So another thing to keep in mind is planting too much can be an issue. I want to say what's her name? At Gulfport High School, Miss Wyndham. I think one year they just had so much basil. It was just basil growing everywhere, more herbs than they really knew what to do with. And so you want to keep that in mind as well. Like, how am I going to manage what we harvest? And so let me see, pro tip, your state's extension service offers lots of growing guides, and that is true. Mississippi State Extension offices all throughout the state. You can often find some free resources. I think they do everything from soil testing, and correct me if I'm wrong, someone in the chat, regarding what they can offer in support of gardens or farm spaces, because I know some schools have animals. Okay, so this is an example. Let me move this thing off the screen here, of garden planning. So we talked about the when and the what you want to plant. You can use charts. We have resources available on our website, and you can find a sample garden plan through the MSU Extension website. You can look online, while you have some downtime, check out a YouTube video or two to just get in the feel of what it's like to get your garden started. We also have a YouTube channel, Mississippi Farm to School, and you can observe some planning resources. But yeah, it's just getting yourself kind of like in the mood for a season of planning and maintenance and watering and tending. So you want to educate yourself ahead of time, and having these planting guides and or your garden plan will just make things a lot easier for you to be a point of reference. This is the produce availability chart I was talking about. We do have these printed posters that we often give out when we're at events. But you can download it from our website. And so, for example, if I want to plant spinach with my students, this wouldn't be something I would get started in February. I would look at my chart and see, okay, when's the optimal time for me to start planting the spinach? And I'm thinking about Christmas break and when students will be out. So let me get these in the ground and we'll harvest them before we're out for Christmas break. And so I've gotten in my mind what I want to do with the spinach, or even some recipes outlined for how I'm going to prepare the spinach once we harvest it. And other things you might think of to do with the students. They can do take-home bags or what have you. So this chart is very useful. I want to say, Mr. Tracy, let me know, you all use the almanac as a planting guide. I think some folks use the almanacs. Okay, companion planting. So you've gotten your garden started. Thanks, Rose. You've gotten your garden started and you're in the trial and error phase. You're anxiously waiting to see if your seeds germinate and they're sprouting. Maybe they're sprouting and you're starting to notice bugs or yellowing, or all types of just garden stuff will start to happen. Do not get discouraged. This is a part of the journey. You can even make this a learning activity with students where they document or draw or report on what's happening with their seeds and how are things changing with this plant. So yeah, if you're planning to grow a classroom, playground, or school garden, it's best to make sure the garden is organic. This is something we really encourage. That means the absence of these really harsh chemicals that can be, not even potentially, that are dangerous, ingesting over time. So when it comes to the garden and students want to eat right out of the garden, you don't want something that's been sprayed down or it has a film of stuff on it and you're trying to consume it. A, it's not going to taste very good. And B, we want to think about the benefits of our garden and wellness, right? So with that in mind, definitely consider sticking with as organic and as natural resources and soil and such that you're going to use in your garden. So instead of using pesticides, consider companion planting, which is basically, for example, if I'm growing a tomato plant, I might want to plant basil, which is a very aromatic herb. I might want to plant marigold flowers, things that can repel certain pests, things that can help protect your plant from diseases or other types of aphids, these little bugs that show up. So again, lots of information out there. It may be a bit overwhelming to take all in all this, garden how-to, but just continue to inform yourself and go through this trial and error process. And again, we're happy to share resources and technical assistance with you as you move along. All right, I'll pause here for Eddie to hop in.
This is one of my favorite slides of this training, and that is, this is an encouragement to those of you that are thinking about planting a garden or, getting fresh food into your classroom by way of gardening. This is a call or a rallying cry to y'all to not lose your creative sense either. So when you're thinking about what you want to plant, this was something this was a new idea to me, but think about how you want to use those plants. And how you can think about this is by thinking of themes, right? So of course, if all of your students really, really love carrots or strawberries, then by all means, get those carrots and strawberries going. But Let's say that your class really loves the idea of a pizza party. Then you could plan your future garden, or at least part of your future garden, to be a pizza garden where you grow basil and tomatoes and oregano. You could, let's say you have a classroom and it's a new classroom, um, or you've got kids in the classroom that they need something to do with their hands. They're really they're super creative. They're mentors or leaders in the space, and they keep looking for ways that they can help you. You could plant a pollinator garden where you're growing zinnias and sunflowers and all manner of things that are going to attract butterflies and other creatures. You could take your class out there and have folks, maybe you have a magnifying glass, maybe you have some little notebooks for them to draw what they see inside. But those are an excellent way to get these kids involved in the garden space and then bring that garden space back into your classroom. At my school, what we would do is we had a pollinator garden. We'd go out there and we'd talk about the bees and what the bees' jobs were. We would count the different flowers. We'd learn lots of different colors. And then we would take our zinnias or our sunflowers inside. And this is a really great fine motor activity. They would then take their zinnias and they would place them in individual, their own sort of flower arrangement creation, and put it around the classroom to warm up the space. And that, again, that connects that indoor space with the outdoor space if your garden is outside. You can also encourage your children. We love art. We love student art and process over product. So you could hand out some paint and rocks, and you could tell the kids, we're going to paint these rocks to put them out in the garden. And they could each have their own rock to place out in the garden, or they could make signs for, here's the carrot space, here's the strawberry space, here's the pollinator space, or even some other whimsical art. Be thinking about how you want to use this garden and how it's going to connect back with your classroom. All right, next slide. All right, y'all. So we want to hear from you again, and we want to encourage you to share your ideas. I know many of you are off screen, and like I said, you've got a lot of things going. I know this is a busy time of afternoon at schools. You're getting ready for pickup or aftercare. But if you can, please put one of these or all of these emojis in the chat if you want to grow a pizza garden with basil, tomatoes, oregano, and more. If you want to grow a pizza garden, put a slice of pizza in the chat. If you want to grow a pollinator garden, this again can be such a great way to learn about butterflies, bumblebees, what is pollination, counting, colors. Put a little bumblebee in the chat. And if you hope to bring student and community art into your garden, which is a really great way to make sure that you're focusing on that science, tech, arts, engineering, and mathematics, put a little painting palette in the chat. We'd love to see who of you, yeah, Rose Galloway, love it. Tamika Kathy wants to bring a pollinator garden in. So does A. Hibbler. I love seeing it. Jess McNally wants to do a pollinator garden. I'm telling you, those pollinator gardens are so fun. And we put our pollinator garden in the center of the garden, so it functioned as a kind of centerpiece. All right. Now, Umi's going to tell y'all a little bit more about where do you want to plant? How do you answer those questions? Thanks, Nicole. I love a pollinator garden too.
Awesome. Yeah. So cannot move this thing out the way here. Where do you want to plant? And again, this is very important to save time and energy and resources. There are some important things to consider. Choosing the right location for your garden is key. So you want to look for a spot with at least 6 hours of sunlight. And this is typical for most of your crops that you plan to consume, like your fruit-bearing crops and such. You want to have at least 6 hours of sunlight. So if you know there's a, not so bothered spot around the school where you're thinking about the garden, but it's really a lot of shade just most of the day, not a good spot. And you can end up planting a plant there and it doesn't mature. So you don't want to feel disappointed. make sure you have the necessary light. Good drainage is important. And this is so that the water can flow, past the roots and through the soil. You don't want to plant where the water is pooled, like it's just sitting stagnant. That could, drown out your plant. You want to make sure the water is able to drain out. So if you are growing in a raised bed or you're growing in the ground, you won't really have any issues. If you're using a container and there's no holes for it to drain, that could be a problem. So just make sure there's holes for that water to drain out. And also easy access to water. Sydney, one of our teammates, posted a photo earlier. She's helping a school now set up some garden beds, and it looked like they were just way out in a field somewhere. So I was like, wait, do they have water access? So visually, you may have a place in mind, but make sure there is a spigot or something nearby so students, your kids are not having to haul those watering cans too far. And then also, because you're having to water kind of manually like that, you may not water it enough, just wanting to get it over with. So just make sure you do have access to water. Rain barrels are also another option. Plan your garden beds based on your school's needs. Raised beds, in-ground plots, or container gardens all work well. So again, just depends on your school's need, capacity, how much help you have to manage it. One garden box may be just enough for you and your class, and that's totally fine. And yeah, as we mentioned, you can always start small and grow. Be sure to pick materials that are safe. I know at 34th Street Community Garden, Mr. Franklin likes to use untreated wood. So, sometimes things like even the wood you purchase can be treated with these chemicals to help it last longer, but as it rains and things, you don't want those chemicals seeping into your soil, essentially. So it's personal preference, can't tell you what to do, but just things to think about as you source materials to build your garden. And this, goes with containers as well, nothing that would have any kind of potentially toxic materials. How do I choose the best space? Key questions to ask. We just talked about water access. Safety and security is a big one as well. Is the area safe for students and their families to access, perhaps even like outside of school hours? I don't know everyone's setup, if it's fenced in or locked up or what have you, but if it is accessible to the public, like, is it safe? And if it can be locked or monitored, all the better. Because keep in mind, if you're planning to eat it, if you can help keep animals and just passerbyers from kind of accessing it or dumping trash or things like that, do what you can to safeguard your efforts in growing. Ownership and permission. Who owns the land? So if you are a school or private school, homeschool, public situation going, and you see an empty lot, make sure you just don't go and start, setting up shop. Of course, ownership and permissions are very important. So make sure you're doing your due diligence and researching access to this lot. And if it is like a neighboring, business or something, and they're like, sure, you can use it, might be helpful to get those things in a formal agreement, especially if you're going to be investing time and money into getting your garden going. You don't want anyone to just randomly boot you off. You want to have some kind of agreement to utilize that space. Sunlight we talked about. Soil quality is very important. Is the soil healthy? So here on the coast, there's New Bethel Missionary Baptist Church. They've started 2 gardens utilizing the lots surrounding the church. And although this is amazing, we've been able to grow food. Initially getting started, one of the lots contained a lot of broken glass and just, debris, trash, other things that had been in that lot. And so, of course, not only can that be potentially dangerous for students to be, walking through and trying to help get the garden started, you want to make sure there's no broken glass and things like that, but also what was in that spot before. You can get the soil tested. You can amend the soil. This process of amending the soil is adding nutrients to it. So maybe the soil's fine. It's just dry and there's no worms. It's just barren. So you can start adding things like that compost you started with your class. You can add compost to the soil, which is like the food scraps. You can add leaves and just other organic materials in the lot you plan to use, the space you plan to use, to build up the nutrients in the soil. So that way you get the best results as you start to grow your food. Accessibility. Is the location easy for students, teachers, and volunteers to reach? So no one should have to, jump a fence, climb a mountain, go underwater to access your garden. You want to make sure it's easy. Maybe you want to create some signs. And this can even be signs around, no picking. We don't want folks to come and just pick our tomatoes. Like you might want to put some signage out there to make it easy for other staff to even know what you got going on. Long-term use, this is important and something we didn't mention before, but like, what do I do with my garden when we're not there? So in this picture here, you can see the greens that are growing. It looks like mustard greens. But perhaps after they've harvested the greens and they know the students, everyone's going to be away for a while, maybe on break, you can cover these beds with, what is that material called? Almost like a tarp. You can cover your beds with like a tarp. And what this does is it can help prevent weeds from coming up. If you don't have a tarp, don't have any additional resources to do that, start thinking about ahead of time, hey, how can I manage, kind of keep this contained so that when we come back, it's not a rainforest when we get back. We've done some way, kind of mitigated weeds and other things just growing wild. So yeah, do a little research. If you have suggestions on how schools can help manage weeds and maintenance over the break, please drop it in the chat. And I think that was it. Yeah, make sure you do have kind of long-term access and use of the space for multiple growing seasons. And cover crops and crop rotation, all that is just a little more in-depth and maybe something we can talk about in a future kind of garden webinar. But just for the sake of this, I hope these kind of assessments on your space are helpful. So when school space isn't available, you all heard me mention New Bethel Missionary Baptist Church. This is a faith-based organization. So there is an opportunity to partner with a local church or mosque or temple that has an open green space. And in fact, this can be really helpful in managing the garden space, because oftentimes members of these particular faith-based organizations will want to take part. They want to help out. They may have additional resources to supply, in addition to the water and just having the lot itself. And it can also be a safe place to grow and a great way for community to come together and engage. Community gardens are a great way. This picture I have here in the background is 34th Street, in the background of my video, 34th Street Community Garden in Gulfport. And this has been a great space for me and my family to learn and to meet folks and to, meet other children in the community that are coming out. And this is outside of the school setting. So great space. You can start a community garden if you are so motivated to do so. Talk to your local mayor or city representative to see about utilizing an empty lot for something like a community garden. Community centers or parks are also really helpful. So you may have a local recreation center, even your local library may have interest in utilizing some outdoor space for community growing and learning and exploration. So everything from rooftops to courtyards, get creative, ask questions, talk to whoever's in charge to see how you can utilize that space. And there are many additional resources through local retailers that can help support your school garden or community garden, like seeds, soil. Sometimes they donate plants that no longer look so pretty, but they're still great plants to get started in your garden, or even like fig trees. So in some cases, you can get these trees discounted or at no cost because they just weren't able to sell. So sorry, we might get into this a little later in the presentation. So build partnerships early by showing how the garden benefits the whole community, not just your school. And that's a great way to get folks to really, support what you have going on, because they see it goes, it's not just one dimensional, it's affecting and influencing many people. All right, and I will pause here.
All right, y'all. So Umi has talked about those first three, the when, the what, the where. But we also encourage you to think about how you want to plan it. There are lots and lots of different options for growing a garden. So get with your team, all those folks at the table, and you can consider containers and pots. These are great for being indoor, outdoor, movable, mobile if you don't have access to your land. You can use recycled buckets, like Umi said. I've seen folks planting in toilets and shoes and 5-gallon buckets. Get creative. Grow bags, that's here at the top, this top photograph. They are lightweight, they're breathable, and again, easy to move. They're also, if you see all of that space for dirt, they're ideal for root crops. So if your kids are really interested in carrots, potatoes, ginger, other kinds of like sweet potatoes, get you some grow bags. Those are fun. And they can be an excellent way to engage, especially our children that have sensory needs, like related to proprioceptive needs. If they just need something heavy to move and that gets them back in their body and regulated, having them moving the bag of dirt and putting the bag of dirt into the grow bag is an excellent way to get them their proprioceptive needs met. Raised beds. These are perfect for larger school gardens. For those of you that have participated in our garden bed distribution program, you've received raised beds from us. These are great because they offer you more control over your soil quality and drainage. If you don't have good dirt, you can buy good dirt or you can get it donated and put it in a raised bed. Vertical gardens, we talked about trellises. Remember, don't use that playground gate to grow your beans, but you can find other trellises, wall planters, hanging baskets. I've seen people do tomatoes, herbs in these places, other vining crops. When space is limited, vertical gardens are excellent. And then finally, we have our hydroponic towers. These are so amazing. They're such a great opportunity to grow year round. You don't have to have good sunlight. You don't have to have good dirt. You just grow the food in the tower, and you can do it in your classroom. Now, they can be a little expensive, and they start at about $400 retail. But I've known a few programs that get on Facebook Marketplace, and they can find a hydroponic tower. And then, now that we're at the top of the hour, I just wanted to share with y'all too, the reason why, or a big part of the reason why this presentation is as wordy as it is because we are going to share this recording and the slides with you all after the training via email. So you have access to it and you can share it. And if you can see the underlined hydroponic towers, that means it's a hyperlink, which means you can click on it. And that hyperlink takes you to a hydroponic towers exploration guide. So it's a great startup guide for any teachers that are looking into hydroponic growing, that sort of thing. I also wanted to, of course, remind you all, if you stay on till the end of this webinar, we've got a survey for you, and those that participate in the survey will receive that certificate for contact hours. All right, yeah, just remember, almost anything can be a planter. Garden supplies. Now, you know what you need. We've talked about what you need. Be mindful that sharp tools and little ones do not mix. They need supervision, so make sure you're nearby. Most of the Farm to ECE programs I'm working with, they like kid-sized gloves. I myself really like to encourage my kids to get in the water, get in the dirt, unless, of course, they have some sensory aversions, in which case you can provide gloves to them and maybe other workers and volunteers. You're going to want a bucket for weeding. You're going to, again, want to make sure that you're near water. A first aid kit is important to remember. Seeds and transplants often, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but you can find free seeds off season. You just go to your nearest garden supply store and be like, hey, this is for the kids. And they'll hook you up. And we, of course, can help you with that. And then some garden rules. We have a garden rule poster that you're welcome to. And then some items that are optional, but are great as a compost bin. That in itself is an excellent lesson for our young kids learning how to compost. Journals. Now, many of our kids are in early literacy. They're not writing yet. They're not reading yet, but giving them a journal and something to write with when they go out to the garden is a great way to engage them in that early literacy. So getting them excited about one day being able to write and read. All right, next. So we've got garden safety, and this, of course, is something for us all to remember. And as really developmentally appropriate for everybody in every age group. But before you get started in the garden, maybe during circle time, before you even get out into the garden space, you're going to want to talk about guidelines. For folks that have older students, I know there are some elementary teachers on the call. Maybe you and your students can create a garden creed or garden guidelines together. And then you're going to want to make sure that you're implementing these rules if they don't occur to your students. But those that are really important to remember are to always have walking feet in the garden. There are a lot of sharp edges in there. Running is not a great choice. You could fall and hurt yourself. Using tools properly. This is something, again, if you want to introduce scissors for the pollinator garden to your kids, make sure you're introducing those tools early in circle time. You're modeling it, because modeling is the only way that we're going to get our little ones, and then, as they get older, our big ones, to understand how we use the tools. So model those tools properly. Be mindful when using sharp tools. If they're under 4, they need an adult. Another good practice is to encourage your kids to wash hands after gardening. With little ones, they've always got sticky hands. So anytime they can wash their hands, excellent. It's just another opportunity for that self-care lesson. Staying hydrated is important. If y'all have water bottles, maybe you have like a little Gatorade cooler you can take outside. I like to just stop all of my kids every 20 to 30 minutes and say, water break, and everybody takes a sip of water. This is especially important between April and September, October in Mississippi. You're going to want to stay on the lookout for bugs and critters, poisonous plants, hot surfaces, and heat. And remember, if you can keep your cool during this time, it's also a great lesson to talk about, what do we avoid? How do we act if we see a little garden snake under something? How can we put on our sunscreen, right? These are big, important lessons for the kids to learn. And then finally, we are in the state of Mississippi, and some of us are in neighboring states. Make sure you plan ahead to beat the heat. So consider watering plants or visiting the garden in the early morning. There's probably not time for you to take your class out in the late evening, but if you've got a watering team, you can do that then. All right.
Yeah, it was one other thing I wanted to add on the garden safety is make sure you all have like designated times, or just encouraging you to have designated times for students to try stuff, so that they're not just eating whenever they're out in the garden, unripened things, or just, and in most cases, I will say, like when I go to Galloway Farm, we're always tasting things from around the farm. However, Mr. Tracy is there to instruct us and let us know what's, the best part to eat and when's the best time to eat it. So just make sure that students are aware of when to taste things, other like during harvest or what have you, and working in the garden.
That's such an important note. Yes. And it actually is a really great segue to this piece, which is, we talked earlier about the pillars of Farm to ECE. So we've gone through, what does your program garden look like? But we also need to talk too about nutrition and agricultural education, right? How can we connect Farm to ECE to the curriculum? Well, there are lots of ways to do that. These next few slides show off some really simple low to zero cost activities that you can do with your students. But, being mindful, like Umi encouraged us all to talk with your students about, there being a time and a place, where can we taste test these things, right? Is so, so important, and a really great foundational lesson before we get into all of this. So all of the following align with NAEYC and Head Start learning standards, but they can be magic for much older children too. We like to encourage folks when they're going out to the garden, start your visit to the garden with a grounding exercise like yoga. It brings all of your class outside, many of whom can be like, they got the zoomies, they want to run around. Maybe you let them have the zoomies for a little bit and then call them all to the center of the garden around the pollinator garden to mimic a tree in the wind. And this kind of brings them back into place and make sure that they're safe in that place. And makes them feel close to the space. You can do a mindful munch or a taste test. You can build bouquets like we talked about earlier with those zinnias and sunflowers. You can decorate with bouquets. You can gift them to others. You can also host a farmer visit. These are incredible opportunities for your farmers to connect with the younger members of their community, and for your kids to be able to see farmers that may look like them, may talk like them, might think like them. You can use, again, this is a hyperlink, our Mississippi Farms map to find a farm near you, and you can invite that farmer to your class. Be mindful, you want to do that probably off season, so not during harvesting times. And if you've got big kids, older kids, they can plan a field trip or a visit. That's an excellent opportunity for them to engage with their community. If you want to check out the Mississippi Farms map, if you're a farmer or if you're a program looking to connect with farmers, just get out your smartphone, open up that phone app, and you can scan this QR code and it brings you direct to our Mississippi Farms map. We are updating this all the time, but it is an interactive space where you can find farmers and farmers can find you. Yeah, thank you, Rose. We love it too. All right, y'all. So how do you engage local farmers? We're getting into that procurement piece. How do you engage local farmers in your school gardens? Well, first of all, why do it? Like I said, they bring representation. They bring real world experience. They deepen your students' understanding of the food system. I've had kids that did not understand that a chicken nugget was from a chicken. And when they realized that the chicken nugget was from the chicken, they became a vegetarian really quick. They're understanding their food systems. And involving farmers in your classroom space can spark kids' curiosity about careers in agriculture, which we really need. Farmers feed all of us. So how can you do this? You can invite a farmer for a guest visit, like we said. You can invite a farmer again on those off months for hands-on help. Maybe you can invite a farmer for a family education event, and you can do a planting day with a farmer. You can do a composting demo. Maybe they teach your families kind of farming 101. And this also helps our farmers connect with potential customers. You can host a farm tour. We've got a field trip form if y'all need it to make sure that all of your kids are covered. And then you could go out to a farm like Galloway Family Farm in Ocean Springs and visit them. And they can explore animal care, harvesting, equipment. They can just get outside for the day and y'all can be in the sunshine. These are excellent opportunities for engaging local farmers. And then finally, you can think about using that like extension service planting guide. What can you grow at school that farmers are growing then at their farms, and then use those foods to link it together, right? You're teaching kids again, about growing with the seasons and that sort of thing. Y'all can get in touch with us if you need help. And of course, we'd love to help you connect with farms. And then I also just really wanted to highlight, I think this is super sweet, these 12 gardening activities. But again, all of these activities align with NACE and Head Start learning standards, but the ones that are overwhelmingly, they show the most student engagement are the caring activities, which I think is so sweet. Kids love to care for things, and that's such a great lesson for them to learn early, because then they can take that care that they've learned with plants and they can extend it to animals, themselves, and their family. And then, of course, some more student engagement, really high student engagement happens when we're preparing the snack and we're eating the snack from the garden. So we love to see that. And that's an excellent, excellent procurement pillar in action. All right, here's some more tips to engage children in gardening. You probably can tell that I'm talking a little fast, but I want to make sure that you'll have time to ask us your questions at the end and that we have time to share the survey. But again, I think the most important thing is to make sure that whenever you have the opportunity to facilitate the kids' ownership of the space or their hands-on learning, do it. That these are such necessary pieces for engaging children in gardening. If they feel like they have agency in the space and they have a say-so, man, they're going to be so much more involved. Okay, so like I said, I think we've got just a few farmers on the call. So I wanted to point out that there are some opportunities for farmers in Farm to ECE, like local food distribution. If you've got a CSA, if you know that there's a Head Start near your house, Head Starts have to participate in the Child and Adult Care Food Program. You can get involved and see if maybe you can deliver some of your crops to them. Farm visits and field trips are an excellent way to get involved, supporting their garden and food lessons, reaching out to them and seeing if they need help with menu development. When I was an admin, I always wanted help with menu development. And then, of course, are there any opportunities for community partnership? Because that is the first level to getting to developing a connection between your farm and Farm to ECE learning spaces. How can these opportunities drive revenue? The CACFP, that Child and Adult Care Food Program that all the Head Starts are participating in, they have a reimbursement. So at no cost to the Head Start, as long as they're aligned with the CACFP regulations, they are going to get reimbursed for nutritious meals and snacks served to enrollees, to them. So you can say, hey, I've got some fresh blueberries that I'm growing. It doesn't have to come on a truck. I can bring it to you in the CSA program. As long as you provide them a receipt, and we'll tell you all about that in a little bit. They can get reimbursed, and it came as no cost to the center, but it landed some dollars in your pocket. And then, of course, like I said earlier, you're going to be marketing to local families, connecting with potential customers. If you're going and talking to one of your ECE classrooms at the local Head Start, and June comes home and says, oh my gosh, Farmer Tracy came and talked to us and he is so cool. I really want to go and talk to him. That could be a customer opportunity for you. And again, we want to make sure y'all know that GAP certification is not required for working with ECEs, but we do very, very much encourage you to use those food safety plans, and we can connect you with those. All right. And then just quickly, for those farmers that are on the call that are also interested, not just in connecting with ECEs, which can be kind of a small business opportunity, but with schools, like larger school districts, I just wanted to highlight the main thing you're going to want to do is build relationships with your local school districts. Maybe you can get in touch with the child nutrition director there and just begin talking about how you can get involved. But, as far as like particulars go, Robertson Produce holds the current contract through 2027 through the Department of Logistics. And what they do is they prepare farmers for purchasing, they ship produce statewide, they handle farmer communication. So if you can get your bid in with Robertson Produce and they use you, that's a great way to get involved at school districts. How you can get on the bid is you can contact Dan Robertson with Robertson Produce to learn about the requirements and next steps. We've got his Clinton, Mississippi office email there. And then, just think about how can you supply statewide distribution? If you can, awesome. Make sure you get on that bid. If you can't, maybe think smaller and go and talk to that Head Start because they would love to hear from you. These are ways we can help our farmers and also our schools. We can help you build menus. We can help connect ECEs, schools, child nutrition directors with you. We support our Farm to School Week Challenge. We offer garden assistance. And of course, we offer technical assistance to all of you, and maybe in the form of field trip prep, maybe in the form of food safety planning, marketing, and more. We'd love to be able to help. So please reach out to us. All right. So when you're thinking about Farm to ECE and you're thinking about this really big presentation that we've gone through and all of these excellent opportunities to get involved, you're probably thinking, how on earth am I going to pay for that? Well, we've got some ideas for you. You can seek a sponsorship or donation using this template letter. We have that on file. Just get in contact with me. We'd love to hear from you. And I can share this with you, and you just update it to reflect your school or your program's information. You can ask for donations from local nurseries or even big box stores like Lowe's or Home Depot. Off season, sometimes they'll just give you a box of seeds. You can even find seed banks at your local libraries, and you can talk to them about getting some seeds for your kids and bringing that over to your program. Let's skip this one. I would like to know if y'all are involved in the CACFP. So if you're involved in the CACFP, I'm going to talk a little bit about what that is and how you can participate in the CACFP. But if you're involved, I'd love to see a thumbs up in the chat. That's something that we're learning about all the time is the Child and Adult Care Food Program. So you can also find funding for your farm to ECE activities through the CACFP. Like I said, they offer reimbursement. Local foods can be purchased through the CACFP from farmers markets, food hubs, CSAs, and beyond. And then your program can be reimbursed. Just make sure you get a receipt with the date of purchase, the name of the vendor or farmer you purchase from, the cost or costs of the items, the amount of food that you purchased, and the total cost. If you need a receipt template, reach out to us. We have this one from the Food Research and Action Center that we'd love to share with you. Next, and I don't know if many of y'all know this, but I learned this in a recent training with the CACFP, you can also use your CACFP funding to reimburse nutrition education, including farmer visits. So when you apply for CACFP funding, make sure that in your budget you have a line item that says nutrition education. And if you've got that line item and you have a receipt from a farmer from whom you've gotten a visit or you went out on a field trip and it cost you some dollars, you can submit that receipt for proof of reimbursement for your nutrition education. And that is pretty cool. You can also get reimbursed for purchasing gardening items, including seeds, fertilizer, watering cans, rakes, garden plot rentals. Just make sure you've got that receipt. Yep. And if you need a receipt template, just let me know. Would love to hear from you. These are some available grants. Instead of going through the grants line by line, I just want to encourage y'all again to get out that phone app. You can use your phone's camera, your camera app. You can use your phone's camera to copy this QR code, and it will take you to our spreadsheet. We keep up with available grants. A really great one that you can apply for today and see some action in the next month is the Johnny's Seeds in-kind donation request. As long as you're a nonprofit or a learning space and you apply to Johnny's Seeds, they're going to send you some seasonal seeds and some swag, all for free. It's really great. All right. Other fundraising ideas, you can get your PTA if you have a PTA involved. You can ask your families to get involved. Some families really want to donate $5 or they want to go out and buy watering cans and gloves. You can start a garden committee, a watering club for the summers when you're closed and it's really hot. Just think about how you can get your families involved because many of them do want to participate. And like I said, we see high levels of participation among grandparents. You can host bake sales, yard sales. You can host an event with a local restaurant where the percent of the proceeds that day go towards funding your garden. You can do an auction or a raffle, a plant sale. These can take a lot of capacity. But if you have those people around the table that can help you with this, maybe ask them to take on the fundraising piece. All right. We are, like I said, we're currently in the middle of Farm to School Month, and many schools in the state of Mississippi are participating in our Farm to School Week Challenge this week. So what we want to encourage all of you to do next October 2026, is to join the challenge. You can do the procurement challenge, the garden challenge, or you can combine them both for the Supreme Challenge. Get some free swag from us, connect with us, let us brag on you, send us pictures. This year, we have over 18,000 student participants in the Mississippi Farm to School Week Challenge, and we'd love even more next year. So please get in touch, follow us online. We'd love to see you next year. Here are some resources for y'all. And like I said, this is where you can see my email address. Would love to hear from you. I'm Eddie at MississippiFarmToSchool.org. And then, of course, you can go to our website and find lots and lots of different resources there. We also have much of the information that you read today or heard from us today is from our 4 Steps to Cultivating a School Garden guide. So when you get the emailed slides from this webinar, you can click on that underlined piece and it'll take you directly to that guide. We also have a Facebook group that offers support for those of you that are new or veteran gardeners. We have a list of garden books for young children, all of which I think are under $3 that you or your school could purchase for your classroom to assist you during circle time. We also have, and this is something I'm very proud of, we are in the process of developing 24 weeks of menus that are aligned with both the CACFP meal pattern requirements and the state regulations laid out by Mississippi State Department of Health. Again, when you get these slides, you can click on that link and it'll take you directly to the 5 months of menus that we have currently, as well as some other resources. And we'd love to see you implement those at your school. And then if you have any questions otherwise about the National School Lunch Program or the Child and Adult Care Food Program or how to host a field trip, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Next, we've got a chance for you to sign up for our newsletter. Again, you can take out that camera app and copy this QR code, and should take you directly to the link to sign up for our newsletter. You're only going to be hearing from us, I think, about once a month, but it's a great way to connect with like up-to-date grants and all kinds of opportunities to get involved in Farm to ECE and Farm to School.